Let's now begin our business rules activity. So our scenario is that we have an online bookseller, Athens Books, and they purchase used books from other booksellers. So these booksellers upload their inventory lists, and Athens Books chooses which books to purchase based on several different criteria. So Athens Books specializes in technology books, and they only accept items in certain genres. They also only accept books costing less than $50. Assuming the book meets these criteria, they also only buy additional copies when current inventory for the book is less than 5. So the goal of this activity is to modify a fully functional pre-built process that uses multiple decision shapes to take advantage of the business rules shape and to understand how the business rules results based document property can be used for custom messaging. So before we begin this activity, we do need to configure our training account. We're first going to create a subfolder within our account. So it's going to be a subfolder in our professional developer folder. We'll click New Folder, and we'll call this folder Business Rules. With that folder created, we're now going to download our pre-built process from the process library. So we'll click Browse Process Library, and we'll search for Business Rules. You want to install the Business Rules activity, Athens Books. You're going to place this in the folder that you just created. Once the process is installed, we can click View Process. So before we run the first test execution of this process, we do need to do just a little bit of configuration. So here in our mail connector, we'll want to use our pre-existing mail connections. That's going to be found in your connections folder. It's called Boomi Training Mail. And then we want to edit the book sale request outcome operation. So we'll click Edit. And here what we want to do is you want to enter your own email address in the To field. So I'm going to enter boomiinstructor@gmail.com. And that's the only change you need to make there. So you can click Save and Close to save the operation, and then click OK to return to the process canvas. So the first thing we're going to do now is test the process and take a look at the results that we get. So we're going to execute this test against Test Atom Cloud. You can see we've got 6 different decision shapes here in our process. So as our test data works its way through the process, we notice that several items, several documents went down some of our false paths. So if we come here to our mail connector and take a look at our shape source data, we're going to see that there's only one document that satisfied all 6 of these decision shapes and made it to the end of our process to generate the email. So if we take a look at that, we're going to see it is a book called C++ that has been accepted for purchase. Now let's leave test mode and return to our process on the Build tab. So now that we know the expected outcome of this pre-built process, we're going to remove the 6 decision shapes. We're not going to delete them, but we are going to pull them out of our process flow. So I'm going to disconnect the split document shape from our first decision shape, and then our final true path, I'm going to disconnect that from the message, and now I can select all of these shapes. And I'm just going to move them out of our process flow. Now I'm going to go to the Shapes palette, and I'm going to bring one business rule shape onto the process canvas. So we'll just drag and drop that business rule shape onto the process canvas. And we're going to begin to configure this shape. So everything with the business rule shape is driven by a profile type. So that's the first step that we take. We'll indicate that our profile type is going to be an XML profile, and we'll find that profile. It's inside of our business rules folder, and it's called Book Catalog XML. Once that's done, I can click OK. And here we are able to begin defining our business rules. So the first rule that we're going to define is called tech books less than $50. So we've named our business rule, and now let's begin adding some inputs to the business rule. I'm going to add a field as an input. I'm going to give this an alias of a genre, and I'll click the Browse button to find the field that I would like to use for the input, and that is going to be the genre field. Once that's done, I will click OK. I need to add one other input. This is also going to be a field. The alias will be price. And I'll use the Browse button to find the price field in my XML profile. Okay, with some inputs defined, we can now begin to build out the conditions of the business rule. So we have two conditions that we need to consider. One is that the price must be less than $50, and the other is that the genre must be computer or cloud-based integration or web programming. So let's begin by adding the condition for the price. To do this, I've added a condition. I'm going to choose price. I'm going to choose an operator of less than. It's going to be a static value, and that value will be 50. And I can save that condition. The next thing that we need to do is add a condition to check for genre. Now, because we are checking for multiple values for the genre, we're going to do this by adding a group. So we'll click Add Group here. And we want our group level operator to be OR. So our top level operator is AND, because we want the condition to be price and, but then within our group, it's an OR, computer or cloud-based integration or web programming. So within our group, we can now build out those conditions for the genre. So I'll add the first one. It's going to be genre equal to static value of computer. Add another OR condition. Genre equal to a static value of cloud-based integration. And then our final condition in our group will be genre equal to a static value of web programming. All right, so that takes care of our conditions. The last thing that we will configure in this business rule is our error message. Now we're able to use our error message to create a dynamic error message that's going to be generated when a book comes through that does not meet the business rule. So in order to configure this error message, we are going to add one additional input back at the top, and that is going to be the book title. So this is going to be a field, an alias of title, and we're going to use the title element from the XML profile. So with that title field added as an input, we're going to enter our error message. So we're going to say the book, and then we'll insert the title, falls under the category of, and here we'll use another one of our inputs, and costs, and we'll use our third input here to input the price. And then we'll say that we prefer only technical books less than $50. Thanks for your interest. So now, when there is a book that does not meet this condition, The seller that has uploaded that inventory list will get some very specific feedback about why we did not accept their book for purchase. We do have some other criteria, though, to determine whether or not we're going to purchase these books. So we do need to create a second business rule. So we'll do that by clicking the green plus sign. And we're going to call this business rule check inventory status. So if you'll recall from the beginning, we said that we're only going to buy these books if we have fewer than 5 copies currently in our inventory. So in order to perform this check on inventory, we are again going to begin by adding some inputs. Our first input will be another field, and it's going to be title. However, our second input is going to be a function. So instead of adding a field as an input here, we're going to select function instead. And this is going to be a lookup function. We're actually going to perform a cross-reference lookup to check our inventory. So we're going to browse at the beginning to find the cross-reference table that we need. It's going to be inside our business rules folder, and it is our inventory status table. So once we've defined that as our cross-reference lookup table, we need to add a lookup reference. So we'll click the plus sign next to lookup references, and here we're going to select book. Now the output value that we are hoping to get from this cross-reference table is going to be the quantity of that book. So over here on the right, we're going to press the green plus sign next to values, and we're going to add quantity. Once that's done, we can click OK. We want to give this an alias, so we're going to call this inventory. We're going to choose our book title, and we're going to set a default value of 0. So essentially what we're saying here is if the title does not exist in our cross-reference table, we're going to assign a default quantity value of 0. So we'll click OK. Now that we've built that input, we can then use that input to define a condition. What do we want to do based on what we know about the book's inventory? So we're going to add a condition, and this condition is going to be inventory less than a static value of 5. Now, we'll configure another error message down below. And for this one, we're going to indicate that we want to say currently we have enough stock of our title. Please try at a later point in time. And then we can click OK. So now our business rule shape is fully configured. So we're going to connect our split document shape to that business rule shape. And then we're going to connect the accepted path to our message shape. Now remember, business rule shape is a little bit different than the decision shape. So rather than a true and false path, we have an accepted and a rejected path. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to format and capture the error messages we might get when documents fail to meet the conditions that we've defined in our business rules. So we need to add a message shape to our process canvas. We'll put that near our rejected path. That's where that's going to reside. And we're going to use this message shape to store the base business rules result message document property. So we're going to call this business rules result XML. And for our message, we're simply going to use a variable So we'll enter that in curly brackets, placeholder of 1, and then let's define that variable by clicking the plus sign. Our type in this case is going to be a document property. And we'll hit the Browse button to find the document property that we want. This is going to be under the metadata section, and we'll expand base. And here's where that business rules result message will reside. So once a document passes through the business rules shape and is rejected, it's automatically going to have this document property attached to the document. So we'll click OK and OK again, and now we have fully configured this message. One thing to note though, these errors are going to come into the message as XML. So in our next steps, what we want to do is format the error message to improve the readability for that email that we're going to send out to the seller. So before you do this next step, make sure that you have downloaded the brr.xml file from your Course Resources tab in the LMS and that you've got it saved on your local machine. So if you haven't done that yet, pause the video, go ahead and do that. Then come back and we're going to add a data process shape to the canvas. We want to split the business rules result. Drag and drop the data process shape onto the canvas. We'll add a processing step of split results, split documents. We're going to give it a display name of split results. And our profile type is going to be XML. Now for our profile, we're actually going to create a new profile here. So we're going to click the green plus sign. And let's call our profile Business Rules Failures. Then we'll click Import a Profile. Again, we're building this from an XML file. We're going to choose wherever you have locally saved that brr.xml file that you've downloaded from the Course Resources tab in the LMS. Then we'll click Next. And once again, we can click Finish. So now this profile has been built for us, and we can click Save and Close to return back to our data process shape. So we want to leave the batch count set to 0. And our split element is going to be our @rule element. And now let's click OK. So we have the raw XML that's coming in this shape. So we'll connect our rejected path to that message shape. And then we have that raw XML will feed into the split results document split shape. And now we want to take an additional message shape and we want to format this data one last time before we send it out in an email. So I'm going to drag and drop one more message shape onto our process canvas. And I'm going to call this one, I'm going to give it a display name of Format Results XML. I want to combine documents into a single message. So I just want to send one email to my bookseller, letting them know why any of their books might have been rejected for purchase. My message, I'm going to just put a variable in curly brackets here, and then I'm just going to add kind of a dotted line below, again, just to improve the readability of the message. And then finally, I'll define that variable. So this time, rather than going out to that business rules result based document property, I'm going to go to my newly created XML profile. So this is going to be a profile element. Profile type is XML. The profile, you're going to find this in your business rules folder. It's your business rules failures profile that you just created. And the element is going to be the business rule failure, not business rule failures, but the one just underneath that, the child element, business rule failure. Click OK, click OK one more time, and click OK to return to your process canvas. So I'm just going to do a little bit of cleanup to my process here. I can see more of it on the screen at once. I want to connect the split results shape to this format results XML. Also going to move these shapes over. Again, just making this a little easier to take a look at. So I've got the final 3 shapes in my accepted path highlighted currently. I'm actually going to go ahead and copy those, and then I'm going to paste them to the end of the rejected path. And I'm going to connect the format results XML message shape to my set property shape to complete that path. I want to update my set property shape. So the mail subject of the copied set property shape was, we'd like to purchase your books. So let's change that because this is our rejected path. And instead, we'll give this a subject of the following books were not selected. And click OK. Once that's done, click OK again. Just ensure that all of our shapes are fully connected. It looks like they are. So let's save the process, and now let's run a test execution of this process. Okay, our process has executed successfully, and we can see that we have documents flowing down both the accepted path and the rejected path. So the first thing we want to do is verify that we still got just one document that is accepted, and that's the same one. So in our accepted path, we'll look at that mail connector shape, and under shape source data, we're going to open the document viewer. And we'll see it's our same book. Our C++ book is still accepted for the purchase price of $44.95. However, if we come here and take a look at the mail connector in our rejected path, we now see that we have some really nice error messages going out to those booksellers. For the first error message is letting them know that, hey, there's basics of Boomi, and that sounds like a technology book and probably met our rule of being less than $50, but we have enough stock currently, so we want them to try again later. They also attempted to sell a book called Difficult Situations, Different Approach. And that's a self-help book that costs $90. So we're able to let them know, hey, we prefer only technical books less than $50. So you could also compare this to the emails that are generated in your personal email address once this process is executed. And a final note before we conclude, you'll notice that there are 2 mail connector shapes in our process. Now these are identical. They're utilizing the same reusable connection, and therefore they're not going to impact your license count. Alternatively, we could have chosen to connect this second set property shape back up into the same mail connector shape. It's purely a style choice. Some folks prefer to have this layout because it's a little bit easier to follow. Okay, this concludes our business rules activity.